Not gonna lie to you, last month has been a rough one. I got sick, inflation kept going up, aliens invaded, and Twitter changed its name. So, since everything is terrible, why not start the month by talking about the problems of liberalism? This video is going to have us look at Alexis de Tocqueville's diagnosis of American democracy. Now, what does democracy have to do with liberalism? Well, when we are discussing liberalism, we are discussing liberal democracy. So the problems of democracy are also problems facing liberalism. But who was Tocqueville? Alexis de Tocqueville was a French diplomat from the 19th century who wrote the book Democracy in America during his travels in, United States. He wrote for a French audience, documenting and analyzing American democracy in 2 volumes. However, despite the book being for a French audience, it became incredibly popular in North America due to its depth. Now, let's delve into a book written by the French, for the French, and of the French, but enjoyed in America. The first interesting insight of Tocqueville is the concept of equality of conditions. Now, we all love equality, but according to Tocqueville, that is part of the issue. Our love of equality blinds us to its problems. The equality of conditions is not about material equality, but rather it is a psychological state. Basically, equality of conditions suggests that no one individual will recognize any one other individual as superior to themselves. Tocqueville traces this to Christianity. According to our favorite French aristocrat, Christianity made all men equal in the eyes of God, which when put into political practice meant that all citizens become equal before the law. When pushed further, it means no one individual will think of anyone else as superior to themselves, but as their equal in every respect. The rise of the middle class and development of commerce, alongside more and more people being educated, have all contributed to the manifestation of equality of conditions. But what's so bad about this? All of us being equal sounds pretty awesome. No one above anybody else, everybody the same. Marx would be proud. Well, the problem leads us to one of Tocqueville's most important analysis. When everyone is equal, that means no one's opinion is better than anyone else's. But then how do we define which opinions are to be implemented politically? The answer, well, whichever is most popular. According to Patrick J. Deneen, equality of conditions produces an unwillingness to defer to the view of any other human, a condition of complete but misguided self-reliance arising from assumptions of equal worth in its most debased sense. Since every opinion is equal, then no opinion is more correct or incorrect, meaning no one has any reason to listen to anyone else or doubt their own opinion. You can't be wrong because you're just as correct and as wrong as everyone else. But politics requires decisions to be made. So if no one cares about anyone else's opinion because they're all equally right and wrong, then how are decisions ought to be made? Well, by having every opinion be equal, individuals paradoxically don't become more confident in their position, but interestingly enough, are quick to just jump onto bandwagons of other more mainstream opinions. After all, if no opinion is correct or incorrect, then why not just join what is most popular? This leads to the tyranny of majority. Tyranny of majority, at least for Tocqueville, isn't about the majority of people coming in and forcing the minority to adopt their position. Not exactly. But rather, it's about people in general abandoning their sense of confidence and stop fighting for what they believe to be right or wrong, and instead entering a relativistic, or in more extreme cases, nihilistic mindsets. In equality of conditions, people lose faith in their own opinions and start jumping on the most popular opinions of their time, whatever they may be. Tyranny of majority is then about controlling people's mind, but not George Orwell 1984 style. Rather, more like hippie, free love everyone kind of style. Once people jump onto a bandwagon, they will not move away from the dominant talking points because they fear being ostracized from their group. Although this is a critique of democracy, one could argue we see this very phenomenon today in liberal societies, with one crazy demagogue after another popping up out of obscure corners of the internet to take hold of people's minds And with people's cult-like devotion to these internet celebrities, we can see what Tocqueville meant in real time. Equality of conditions become a threat to one of the core principles of liberalism, freedom of thought. So how do we fix this? Well, fear not, dear viewer. Just as Lizzo was concerned about the potassium intake of her background dancers, we too shall concern ourselves with fixing this problem. The answer is actually surprisingly simple and incredibly difficult to implement. People should care a lot more about municipal politics and start actively engaging in smaller political discussion groups like town halls. By going back to smaller political participations, people can rediscover the importance of smaller political communities. For example, due to being on a smaller scale than federal politics, municipal politics become less prone to group thinking and tyranny of majority. Due to its size, citizens are forced to think more for themselves because what happens in those meetings are more immediately seen. Discussing trickle-down economics might seem theoretically interesting, but is not seen immediately, whereas where to build a park or a parking lot is a lot more immediately seen because it is visually happening in your community. And as we all know, people are visual creatures. We are much more prone to feel strongly about things we see rather than the things we read about or think about abstractly. The antidote to tyranny of majority is someone like Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec, someone who's uncompromisingly dedicated to town hall meetings and argues passionately over the smallest and sometimes stupidest events that can happen in a community. Admittedly, conversations about where people can build chicken coops don't make great pickup lines at the club in comparison to, say, discussing American foreign policy towards Ukraine. But the former is perhaps more important than the other because individual citizens have more impact on them, and due to its size, people are forced to think more for themselves, which means they will start building up confidence in their opinions. So, if you take anything away from this video, let it be this. Be like Knope.